call the April 5th, 2016 regular council meeting to order. Would council members please denote your presence by depressing your yes switch?
All council members are present.
Thank you. Council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. I see a Boy Scout in the gallery. Would you care to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure. Thank you. Could you give us your first name before you start?
Come on up here.
Yeah, you're on microphone now.
Now you repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the March 15th, 2016 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on March 23rd, 2016.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Miller, seconded by Councilman Johnson.
You're Bob on the
Or Johnson. We'll just go with it. Okay. Any corrections? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye. Motion passes.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the March 22nd, 2016 special council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on March 29th, 2016.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Miller. Any corrections? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the April 5th, 2016 bills and claims as audited by City Manager McDonald.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilman Hiley. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote. Let's cast that vote again. Okay. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passes.
Thank you. Well, today is National Service Recognition Day. Serve Wyoming. Hi, Nuri. I have a proclamation to read, and then we will hand off this proclamation to those who serve. How much of a spot do you want to be under right now? Do you want to approach the podium?
We can approach the podium.
In case we have any.
We're going to say thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And please introduce yourselves.
Mayor, council members, my name is Shelley McAlpin, and I'm the Executive Director of Serve Wyoming. With me today is the Serve Wyoming staff, Nuri Glasgow, as you know, and Jessica Stanbury, and also Commissioner Dean Welsh. So there's a prepared list of things I could say, but generally speaking, there's 780 national service members who served in 2015 in our state. These are AmeriCorps members. You'll see these placards here. Senior Corps, who am I missing, Nuri? RSVP members. These are people who gave up to a year of their life to serve our country in our state, as well as AmeriCorps Vista. Thank you.
Vista, yeah.
So we want to thank you for recognizing this. and appreciate the opportunity to share that this is happening in our state. Currently, AmeriCorps members are doing a variety of things for different agencies and nonprofits across our state, including teaching, mentor, youth. They're serving military and their families, and they're good stewards of the environment with Wyoming Conservation Corps, Teton Science School, and various other programs. So this is happening all across our state, and we appreciate the opportunity to bring this proclamation and be recognized. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll read it, and then we'll hand it off to you. It is one thing to say that we care, and another thing to show up and do the work that needs doing. Some make excuses. A problem is too difficult or too big to make a difference. Others, they show up. Giving our time and talent is a sincere expression of hope, and such sincerity deserves recognition. Whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our cities and counties, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century and supporting veterans and military families, to providing health services and helping communities recover from natural disasters, and whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve, and whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 60,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being, and whereas a national service participants increase the impact of the organization they serve, both through their direct service and by recruiting and managing millions of additional volunteers, and whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, City of Service, and mayors across the country to recognize the impact of service on the Mayor's Day of Recognition for National Service this day, April 5th. Therefore, be it resolved, I, Daniel Sandoval, Mayor of Casper, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim April 5th, 2016 as National Service Recognition Day. Thank you. And next, we have a presentation from R.C. Johnson about the discrepancy of pay between men and women.
Thank you so much, Mayor Sandoval and members of City Council. I know I'm a familiar face at least once a year. It's come about the same problem: equal pay, wage gap, women underpaid. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson today instead of just kind of clamoring about what is happening. I thought it was so fascinating when I was looking at this presentation this year that there have been so many things that have happened, and I wanted to share those with you as well as the audience. So here goes. Equal Pay Day this year is next Tuesday, April 12th, 2016, and so we're going to start out with what does it symbolize and what does it mean? I think I hit the space bar to go next. Is that what I do? I haven't tried it yet. Okay. This date is a match for men when we are looking at men having earned their salary through December of 2015. Women will work an extra 4 months to match that. So that's why the date, April 5th. 12th, I'm sorry. For many women, the pay gap is really a tough balancing act. If you can see the images here, you see the woman with her briefcase on one side and a baby on the other side, and she's balancing work and home. For many women, that pay gap is a tough balancing act that's done alone because you have many women who are head of household. It's an issue for AAUW ever since 1881 when AAUW was established because we are promoting equity for all women, and we have done so through our policies and our programs. Now, the battle for equal pay, here's the history part coming in, actually predates the 1881 commitment of AAUW. What you're looking at is a fight for equal pay that dates back to the Civil War. In February of 1869, in a New York Times editorial, there was a question as to why 500 women working in that Treasury Department earned half as much as their male colleagues. The wars have brought about change in that wage gap. In World War I, World War II, the National Labor Board, in a patriotic logic pronouncement, said, well, since women are doing the work that men would ordinarily do, they should be paid the same. I think that was a colossal idea. At the end of the war, especially World War II, it brought a change in that patriotic logic. Male veterans needed jobs. Women returned to homemaking and childcare. Here comes the baby boom. That's quite a lot of babies that got born after that. The 1960s did bring some legislation to narrow the gap. 1963, we had the Equal Pay Law. 1964, we had the Civil Rights Act, and in that act, it prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, origin, color, religion, or sex. 45 years after that, however, we got the next major piece of legislation. We got the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. That act restored some of the protections for individuals needing to file suit for disparate pay, and it incentivized the employers to make their payrolls more fair. AAUW has a policy of working for pay equity and fairness in compensation, in equitable access, and advancement in employment. And we advocate a very vigorous enforcement of employment anti-discrimination statutes. Now, given this history that you have heard, and given what we know, here are some questions, but I understand you are not obligated, and I'm not asking for any answers, so these are more rhetorical at this point. Did these events in history affect the wage gap in Casper? What is the current state of the wage gap in Casper? What laws, forces, and factors keep the wage gap in play in Casper? And what laws, forces, and factors can change, narrow, or eliminate the wage gap in Casper? It is really a matter of discrimination, and the ultimate question is, where does Casper stand? Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for R.C. Johnson?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I'll just a quick statement, maybe not a question, really than to reinforce that you're right. My counterpart, that's a male, makes probably $30,000 more a year than I do, with pretty comparable experience in education, and it's a bummer. So it's just too bad.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to give my name, my address, and all of that. But I am R.C. Johnson. I live at 450 North Washington Street, Casper, Wyoming. Okay. Thank you for reiterating that.
I was listening to NPR, and I heard some stats too. And over a 30-year period, it adds up to like $600,000 in difference for white women. It's even more for people of color, Hispanics. It's like $700,000 a year, and it's the rhetorical questions that you gave us about locally. I have to admit, and these comments may even reveal some of my own ignorance or naivete. But when you were saying those questions about the local conditions, I'm thinking with the hit in the oil field, the only people left with jobs are the predominantly women working at Wyoming Medical Center as medical professionals, and in the schools where women, again, are a fairly sizable portion of the workforce. So, you know, they're the only ones getting jobs anyway. They should be getting comparable pay.
It may be time for us in Casper to take a more concerted look at what is happening. Because one of the problems we have is Wyoming is always identified as the lowest in the states. Actually, Wyoming is one of three. It's Wyoming, it's Utah, West Virginia, and a lot of times people will throw in a fourth, which means Louisiana. And in many cases, we do have the extraction industries going on. What is interesting to me is at this time, with so much going wrong with our economy, perhaps now is the time to seriously look at the diversification process. And perhaps we should be tapping into the skills and the creativity of the female mind, which can develop new industries, new areas of enterprise, and make us all a lot more prosperous and stable over time without the boom and bust that we've had for so long.
Well, just seeing how there are so many women heads of household, it just makes sense to seriously look at that issue, because it's tough. Economic conditions don't even favor single parent households, and if you're gonna financially hit female heads of households, you're making the problem a lot worse.
And their families.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for attending to my presentation.
Thank you. And we don't get cookies this time.
Well, what happened was, the
Right. Right. And it might have been a really good excuse for us to mentally dismiss the issue because we have this tasty little cookie to distract us.
But thank you again.
Thank you. Council will now address the main business portion of the meeting. Council carries out business by 3 types of action: by ordinance, resolution, and minute action. Ordinances require 3 readings and votes, whereas the other items are passed by 1. Ordinance create or modify law, whereas resolutions and minute actions items provide for the council to carry out business. These various actions have different publication and public hearing requirements. Items may be considered by consent or not consent. Consent items are typically routine and will not be discussed by council. Items not listed as consent will be discussed by council. There is a process for the public as well as council to remove items from consent. We had that tonight, so that we're going to have an open public discussion about those particular items that were pulled off consent. Okay. Third reading, ordinance. Consideration of the next items will be by ordinance. Please read the consent ordinances on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a final plat and subdivision agreement of the development of the Heritage Hills Addition Number 4 subdivision in the city of Casper, Wyoming. An ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.12 of the Casper Municipal Code, Board of Examiners and Appeals, and Contractor Licensing.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the consent ordinances just read.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Vice Mayor Cathy, seconded by Councilman Miller. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Okay, council will now discuss the resolution for the weed and litter contract. Because this has been pulled from consent, it will be open for discussion by council. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing a contract with AAA Landscaping.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution just read.
So moved.
We have a tie, and we're going to give it Johnson, moved and seconded by Councilman Hopkins. City Manager report.
Your Honor, in the effort to provide a safe and healthy community, the Casper Municipal Code provides that property owners must control weeds on their property by keeping the weeds mowed below a certain height, and they also must keep the property clear of litter. In the event these requirements are not met, notice is sent to the property owner, communicating they're in violation of one or both of these requirements. However, if the property owner does not remedy the conditions, the city may provide for mowing the property and or litter pickup. The property owner is billed for the cost of these services. Because the city does not maintain staff or equipment to provide mowing or litter pickup, annually the city's Code Compliance Division contracts with companies to provide weed abatement and litter pickup services. This year the contracts are proposed with AAA Landscaping, B&B Sales and Service, Green Tree Arboriculture LLC, and Whole Shot Lawn Care Services. Multiple entities are contracted with to ensure ready availability, and the entities are assigned work on a rotating basis when they're available. And some code compliance staff are here. Shelley LeClaire is here, as well as Liz Becker is, if you have questions on the details of the contracts.
Okay, we'll wait for discussion to pull those in if we want to, right? Okay. Ms. Bergeron has asked to address council.
Mayor and members of the council, My name is Linda Bergeron, 2352 South Kaufman Avenue. When I was reading over the packet, this kind of struck me as being contrary to our Wyoming Constitution and our United States Constitution, in that the secret and the essence of maintaining our freedom in this country is private property rights. I firmly believe that. And so I would like you, as elected officials, to speak to the issue of your oath of office, and which is to uphold the Wyoming State Constitution and the Constitution of the United States. And it just seems like planning and zoning is kind of more and more encroaching upon our lives. And it doesn't seem that there is a way to make it subside. It just seems to grow. And my concern is, if you look at a newspaper, you will see that people are losing their jobs weekly. My husband works in an oil-related field. He reports to me constantly, this company laid off 15 people, this company laid off 30. This is not a time, I don't believe, for more encroachment on private property rights. So Harriet Hageman gave a really nice speech this weekend on the Wyoming State Constitution, and her admonition to electors was, please get out and stick up for your Wyoming Constitution. It's the essence of our rights. And I was totally amazed by her wisdom, her research, and her protection of private property owners and their water rights specifically. But I was just kind of taken back seeing that we're going to go on private property owners' land, go in and cut down their trees, and send them the bill. And this, I'm addressing the same scenario in AAA, landscaping, B&B sales, green tree arboriculture, and whole shot lawn care. I personally will never do business with any of those people. What's happened right here, I will not. I'll go to a different service. I'll have my trees trimmed there. But so those are my concerns, and I'd like council to address them, if you would, please. And again, my cause of concern is that we protect the private property rights of individuals and the electorate, and I'd like to know where the opt-out clause is.
I'm writing that down, opt-out clause.
Please.
Okay, define your term, our opt-out clause, as opposed to getting code enforcement looking at your yard thinking it's getting a little shaggy, and you somehow opt out of the process of getting a letter after a while.
Well, there is, we're working on a home, and in doing that, we talked to an inspector, and he said there is an opt-out clause. And that is, I can't think of the word right now. I was going to look it up before I came. But there is, it's called a remedy. In every law has to have a remedy to protect the private citizen. I want to know where the remedy is in this law. Because it will become a law, and then it will be required that we follow the law. And it's just concerning to me. You know, I can look at my trees and realize they need trimmed, and sometimes it's a matter of budgeting for that.
Right.
And it doesn't do me much good when somebody comes in, does it for me, and sends me a bill, and I cannot afford it. Whereas if I do it on my own and I budget for it, probably we would both, all around, be able to improve living conditions for all involved.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
Shelley, do we go into somebody's property and cut it down for them, whatever it is, and then send them the bill?
If you're talking weeds, yes, after notification. We don't go in and cut trees. We don't have the financial budget to trim trees right now. So if you're talking weeds, dandelions, other vegetation that is hazardous public health and safety issue, yes, we have cut weeds. I've been in code enforcement since 1991. This is not a new ordinance.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot, Shelley.
And if I may, Your Honor.
Yeah.
There's a due process element to this. I mean, like she said, these aren't new ordinances, so they don't just come in and mow your lawn and send you a bill. They give you a notice, and then you have a chance to respond to that notice. Am I correct?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Once a homeowner gets a notice that their yard is not in compliance, the homeowner has 10 days to request a hearing before city council or an independent hearing officer. And then after that hearing, the homeowner actually has a right of appeal to the district court. So there is due process that's built into our ordinance. If it is found against the homeowner that the nuisance actually exists, this is based on health and safety actually, and a nuisance, and the homeowner still refuses to abate the nuisance by mowing their own yard, then the city can go in and mow it and then assess the cost back to the homeowner. So first they get notice, and the whole idea of the notice is to allow the homeowner to remedy the problem. The homeowner can argue that I don't have a problem and ask for a hearing and an appeal from that, but if they ultimately lose that, they still need to abate the nuisance. If they don't, then the city can come in, mow the weeds, and assess the cost back to the homeowner. Because really under our Constitution too, we can't make donations, and the city shouldn't be out mowing people's lawns for free. They have that obligation, so if they fail in their obligation to keep their yard and mowed and abate the nuisance, then it's only right that the taxpayers recoup their cost. And the power to do that is by the legislature under the powers of city governments, where the cities have the right to declare and abate nuisances and impose fines. And we also have the home rule under the Wyoming Constitution that allows cities to determine their own affairs where the legislature has not otherwise acted, and the legislature in this case has given the city powers under health and safety to abate nuisances. And as Shelley indicated, this ordinance has been in place for a long time. These contracts that's before council tonight do not give these contractors the right to simply go and start cutting people's lawns. That only happens after the city gives notice, the homeowner fails to comply, then the city uses these contractors in order to do the work that's otherwise required by the ordinance.
If I might, to clarify, Mayor and City Council members, we take this, our legal responsibility very to the utmost degree because we are, it's tough times, and if I send you a notice of violation, you choose to do nothing, then I'm still going to, and I don't have to do this, I'm going to try and reach you by phone, I'm going to try and leave a door hanger before I go ahead and assign it to the contractor. If you appeal, then that stops everything.
My concern was, I thought for sure, I read in here that it was, it concerned trees and branches.
No, tree limbs, litter, like tree limbs that have fallen down, or we will send you a notice to trim your tree, but in all the years we've done that, we've probably trimmed 2 trees, 3 trees maybe, and those are just snipping off the branches to get them up past 8 feet off the sidewalk so you don't hit them as you're walking, because a lot of these people are elderly, they're abandoned homes, they're foreclosed homes, so we just do our best to try and take care of the initial violation. We're not gonna, the thing we would do is take you to, issue a citation, take you to court if you had a huge tree problem and you refused to do anything about it. But we understand, I mean, it's tough times and tree trimming is expensive.
Right.
These contractors basically are gonna be doing weed and litter and junk abatement on our request based on the legal requirements after they've been fulfilled, get your notices.
I'll have your word on that.
Oh, that's the way it is. That's how we operate. We have nothing to hide. That's how we operate. We are very legal about it. I don't want to come onto your property. I don't want to create more hate and discontent. There's enough of it out there on government. It doesn't need to come from me or my staff. We go by the book and we reach out as best we can. We get ignored, we get told to pound sand quite often, but we do the best we can to notify the neighbor, hey, or notify the owner, we have a problem. We'll notify the owner and the renter, which we don't have to do, we just need to do one or the other, we generally notify both. So that the owner lives in Colorado and the renter's here, the renter's not taking care of the property. That way the owner knows, we'll send the owner a picture, so that we're not just blowing smoke, we're like, this is a problem. It's a problem for your neighbors, we take it very seriously. Because that creates a problem of vandalism, it creates more hate and discontent in the neighborhood. If you happen to just mow your grass or you mow your weeds down and it looks green, that's fine. Maybe you don't even have any grass, it's all dirt. But if you live next door to somebody who doesn't do that, it creates so many problems in the neighborhood. It just is a hard thing to deal with. So we try and keep it on an even level, and we do our due diligence to notify, phone calls, door hangers, postings, everything is done legally as we are required to do. Otherwise, we'd be over in municipal court quite often. Bill would not be happy with us.
Okay, so can you tell me where code enforcement comes from?
It's the health and safety nuisance.
Actually, the powers that are given to cities by the state legislature grants us the power to abate nuisances such as weeds, litter, junk, those types of things. So we have the power from the state legislature. We also have the power under Article 13, Section 1 of the Wyoming Constitution that gives the city's home rule powers to govern our own affairs by ordinance. And that includes the police power for public health and safety on these kind of things.
Okay, I'll read it.
And then
more
we build
carefully.
due process in by having you have the ability to ask for a hearing. So it's not just one-sided.
That's what I'm asking for, a remedy.
The remedy is under, if you take a look at, in fact, I'll give you a copy of it. I have an extra copy. Here is the ordinance on weed and pest control. And if you take a look at, I think I highlighted some of this. If you take a look at 8.44.080, it's the appeal process, and where the homeowner can ask actually for the hearing to contest the city's determination.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
That applies also to junk vehicles, things like that. There's an actual appeal process. Litter is the only one that you have 5 days to remove it, and that's pretty simple because it's blowing trash, tree limbs, things like that. So.
what I gave you is just on the weeds that we're talking about with the contracts tonight.
Okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank the city staff for their explanation of the actions which the city takes. I'd hate to think what would happen if the city did not or chose not to enforce the existing ordinances and code with regard to litter and trash abatement and yard maintenance. So I'd like to commend the staff for their sensitivity in dealing with these issues. It's a difficult job that often is not really considered difficult, but you are dealing with the public, and we thank you for dealing with the public in a sensitive way. Finally, I just wanted to state that I cannot support a notion of boycotting the businesses that are lawfully conducting services on behalf of the city.
More discussion. I think the problem is there's no way that you get perfect proportionality with laws, and you're right, ordinances have a tendency to creep, and there could be mission creep, but I also have interacted with Shelley LeClaire and the, code enforcement a couple of times, and they've always been very reasonable. So, yes, as a matter of strict principle, the fact that a code enforcement officer can get a call and drive by your place and see that your grass is knee-high, it does seem to infringe on your ability to maintain your property however you want. But the proportionality comes in, as City Attorney Lubin has indicated, in the due process and just the people you deal with who are understanding. And some people may have not tried this and some people may have, to tell Shelley LeClaire, hey, I'm trying to reseed my grass. If you give me 2 more weeks for those seed heads to actually cure in the sun, just ignore it for 2 more weeks. The seeds will fall, I'll have a better lawn next year, and everything's fine.
Does that work?
I've never tried it.
I'm not sure I follow the argument.
But I'm telling you, Agapyron spicatum, which is one of our hardier grasses, it matures always about 2 weeks after the letter.
Funny.
So, there's no chance for me to go and talk to the judge and, go through the process, because it's easier just to cut it. But I understand in principle what you're saying, and there is ordinance creep. There always is. And with something like a yard, maybe that's an area where you do get some disproportionality. Disproportionality, yes. It's like, is it worth hassling you over the height of your lawn? No, but that's a mechanism to where if it's really bad, the city can actually do something about it. Like, find out who the property owner is and tell them. Talk to them, What if nobody even knows that the lawn is that high and the trash is built up? There's a process, you find out, they fix it, and I haven't asked in this public forum how often this happens and a general amount that a property owner may be assessed for like a 5,000 square foot lawn.
Well, I can give you some examples here. Straight documents. Okay. Let me give you an example of, I can find a private property, like this I have here.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if Shelley should come to the microphone so that the people listening in can hear this.
Based on the contract prices, I don't have those in front of me.
Right.
We will generally try and rotate the assignments out so that all of the contractors get equal work. The reason we have to have 4 is because they each have their own business, so we get really busy. This year is going to be really bad, I think, with foreclosures, people just leaving. So a lot of these four contractors will be busy with their own businesses. So when we're assigning them out, when we're requiring people to mow their weeds, we can't always get a contractor. Everybody's too busy, so our work starts to pile up. So if you take that contract price and you multiply it by $5,000, 5,000 square feet, you're going to see what we charge. It could be anywhere from $150 to $230, depending on which contractor has it. So the prices vary. When it comes to junk, we try and assign that to the contractor who charges us the least. Some of them charge, I'm going to say $50 for a cubic yard. Some of them charge $35. We're going to try and hit the people with a lot of junk and litter that have chosen to not clean up the contractor that charges the $35. So we try and be as fair as we can, because it is tough. Cheryl Metzger, one of my officers, was out in Barnum, and she had to do a forced cleanup, and she went through so much effort just to get to that point. And finally, the sheriff's department showed up, and they were knocking on the doors. The people wouldn't answer the door until the contractor started hauling the stuff off. Then they come out, and then they want to talk. And so that makes it a really tough situation. We try and be very fair and equitable in everything that we do. We do not want to create hate and discontent. We have to, but we smile and try and be friendly about it. So,
well, to answer that question about proportionality, how often does this happen?
it could be, like we'll have, I think in here, I have a chart that shows, in 2015, we assigned out 164 jobs to contractors. In 2014, it was 217 jobs. 2013, it was 226 jobs. 2012 was 143, and 2011 was 149. Now, the other important thing to remember about these contractors is we have to help the Parks Department. They go, they mow Long Park, they mow Sage Park. We go in and we do the trimming. We do the small stuff. So we may be paying, we'll get a bid, maybe we're paying $900 to mow, to do the trim work. But if we're requiring the residents over off of Carriage that abut Wyoming Boulevard, and we're requiring them to mow their weeds, and we're not taking care of the drainages, that's a bad thing. That does not look good. So those are some of the important things that we do, not only just with private property, but with the public property as well. We have to take care of our amenities, and we help with parks. We help sanitation. They help us. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It kind of is, but I was really hoping for a little more. What is the city's public safety interest in making sure?
If I might,
Yeah.
maybe I can help with that.
Yeah.
This is a real example. It's not an esoteric argument.
Okay.
About 2 years ago, I got a call from some of the people that live in my neighborhood, and there was a stop sign on Lincoln Street that a neighbor who was a non-resident landowner had been sent a notice that you need to cut this tree back so you can see the stop sign. This is a stop sign right on Lincoln. There had been accidents, people running this stop sign, you couldn't see it. Well, city took care of the problem. They went in and trimmed the tree and had to trim some other trees because you couldn't see the stop sign. Now, I realized we had to go onto somebody else's property to do that, and part of it was on city property. It was a tree that an individual planted in the right-of-way between their sidewalk and their street. It's their responsibility to trim that tree, but it could have killed somebody, and there was accidents. So this is a real-world case. The landowner was not resident. What do they care about their trees growing in the middle of Wyoming? So sometimes you just have to do this to take care of a really serious situation. In other situations, it may not be that serious, but it's still part of our responsibility as city council to address this with city staff and contractors to do it. Okay. And I don't see it as a constitutional issue at all. It's a matter of public safety.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? Linda?
I appreciate you addressing my concerns. I really was seeing the standing dead trees,
Right.
quote unquote.
Right.
and People just deciding they can go and cut your tree down. So that
Well,
to me is
we were-
obvious.
We were wondering how we're going to pay for all those trees. Now maybe this is the model. Kidding, kidding. No, this is not the model. Okay. Thank you. Council now. Oh, we're going to vote. So we're going to do this individually, or are we just going to let that one discussion cover it? Okay. Any amendments? Discussion?
Your Honor?
Please? Yeah.
Not having heard any comments on the contracts themselves, which are the particular subject at hand, and having read the contracts, I will be voting in favor.
Okay. We got that? All right. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Okay, the council will now discuss resolution for weed and litter contract. Because this is not on the consent agenda, it will be open for discussion by council. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing a contract with B&B Sales and Service.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution just read.
So moved.
Seconded?
Moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilman Miller. City manager report.
Your Honor, the same report. as
Okay.
the last report.
All right. Any more discussion? Any amendments?
Mr. Mayor,
Please. Yeah.
is it legal for me to go ahead as an amendment to this to include C and D? I'm asking as a legal opinion.
Bundle them all
You mean
together.
add a change to the contract itself?
No, to add agenda item 9D, 9C
Oh.
to 9B.
No, I would suggest these be voted on separately.
Okay.
I withdraw any
Yeah.
amendments.
All right. Good try, though. Shows you thinking. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Council will now discuss the resolution for the weed and litter contract. Because this is not the consent agenda item, it will be open for discussion. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing a contract with Green Tree Arboriculture LLC.
The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Johnson. No city manager report. Any more discussion? Please cast your vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Council will now discuss the resolution of the weed and litter contract. Because this is not on the consent agenda, it will be open for discussion. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing a contract with Whole Shot Lawn Care Service LLC.
Chair would entertain this motion.
So moved.
Seconded?
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Miller. Amendments, no. Cast your vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, the council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 9E1, a resolution authorizing acceptance of grant funds from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Item 9E2, a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Gier and Al LLC for operation of the 19th Hole Restaurant at the Municipal Golf Course. Item 9E3, a resolution accepting the revised Wyoming Association of Risk Management Property Insurance Joint Powers Board Agreement. Item 9E4, a resolution approving the exercising of an option to purchase one 18-passenger bus from Davy Coach Sales for use in the city's transit system. Item 9E5, a resolution approving the vacation and replat of lots 31A through 33A, Mesa del Sol to create Mesa del Sol 2, lots 32B and 33B. Item 9E6, a resolution authorizing an application for encroachment with the Casper Alcova Irrigation District for a new sanitary sewer main as part of the 33-mile sanitary sewer project. Item 9E7, a resolution authorizing a funding agreement between the City of Casper and the Natrona County Conservation District. Item 9E8, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Installation and Service Company, Inc. for the 2016 Casper Public Utilities Asphalt Repair Project. Item 9E9, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a mineral royalties grant from the State Loan and Investment Board for the K Street Improvements Project. Authorizing 2 procurement agreements for the 2016 Casper Public Utilities Materials Procurement with the following companies. Item 9E10, a resolution authorizing a procurement agreement with Dana Kepner Company of Wyoming. Item 9E11, a resolution authorizing a procurement agreement with Waterworks Industries, Inc. Item 9E12, a joint Natrona County, City of Casper, and Natrona County School Board resolution to study the challenges facing the public library.
Council will now consider consent resolutions. Would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Johnson. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote.
Oops, wrong one. There you go.
And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye.
Council will now consider minute action items. These are routine business items that do not require a resolution. Please read the consent minute action titles.
Item 10A1, authorizing the purchase of 1 used Olympia Millennium 800 ice resurfacer from CMI Teco to be used at the City of Casper Ice Arena for the Leisure Services Department. Item 10A2, authorizing the purchase of 1 used 40-ton articulated dump truck from Tri-State Truck and Equipment to be used in the Solid Waste Division of the Public Services Department. Item 10A3, authorizing the purchase of 1 used John Deere 1600 Turbo Series 2 mower from Stoats Equipment to be used in the Parks Division of the Public Services Department.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Schlager and seconded by Councilman Hiley. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Now's the time. We invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to council to come forward. We ask that you please state your name and address. Welcome, Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. There's been a lot in the media about the event center, and I just kind of wanted to, if you wouldn't mind, if the city manager could kind of clarify this $1 million loss, because my interpretation was it's not really $1 million loss or shortfall. There's also maintenance issues that have been built into that, along with depreciation and some other things. And I just wondered if you could take a second and educate the public and myself a little bit.
Okay, but I remind everyone, protocol dictates that I get to be the only one that calls out the city manager. City manager.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the last 3 years, the subsidy to the event center operations has run near the $1 million mark. That does not include depreciation. I think years ago, depreciation was charged to the event center, but since it was a subsidized operation, that didn't make any sense, and that was dropped quite a long time ago. It may include some minor capital. All the major capital for the event center is paid for out of optional 1 cent tax, some general fund one-time money if it becomes available. But that $1 million is pretty much the operating subsidy for, for the center. And it's grown over the last few years.
Questions, comments? Okay.
Sorry, Your Honor. Thank you for that. I guess I was thinking there was some general maintenance in there. I don't want the public to think that, number one, our staff and council said this at the work session, that our staff has done a remarkable job over the years with that facility. Also, without that facility, I think the citizens need to understand, without that facility, not only there's quality of life issues on recruiting, whether it's doctors or folks to work for the city or folks from the medical center, but on quality of life issues, but the amount of economic impact that that facility generates for the community is just an amazing feature of that building, very unique to a lot of communities. I think we've got a rare opportunity with the management contract, and years ago I would have fought that, but I think the time has come and the time is right to look at that. And but I don't want it, there's always been arguments that that's a horrible thing, and why is the city putting the money into that and keeping it going, and it would be a shame if we ever would have lost that. And I think it was actually the very first 1 cent project.
Other than this building.
And this building also. So I just wanted to elaborate on that. The other thing that I took away from the work session was, even though I really felt after the budget explanation and the shortfall explanation, I felt we're on the right track. A little over a year ago, I wouldn't have said that. And I think we've got the right person in place. And I think council is heeding those projections. And I wanted to stand up and say something like, wow, this, is making sense. And I think, I think our citizens should understand that in these down times, some of these projects may look foolhardy, but those capital construction jobs also, as long as we can keep those dollars in our town and keep those rolling over, we're keeping people employed in a downturn. So I want to congratulate you guys for that. On code enforcement, I too agree. These contractors were putting bids in, doing the right thing, responding to an RFP. They shouldn't be penalized. That is the wrong way to look at that, on boycotting them. I can't support that either. I've had my run-ins with code enforcement, and I don't always agree, but they are professional, and I've been on both sides of it. Where would we be if our neighbors even refuse help from another neighbor? You've got not only trash, but a problem with rodents, stray cats, that kind of thing, in a neighborhood. And I also see it as a public safety issue. And I just think we need to keep that in mind, that there's two sides to the story. I don't think, I mean, I've appealed my cases not to the appeal board, but if I've disagreed with code enforcement, I call Doug Barrett. And I didn't win.
Yeah.
So Doug said, cut your fence down.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I did want to point that out. And again, the event center has been a godsend, in my opinion, to a true economic development device to bring different tournaments. And where would we be in the middle of January, February, March without the high school tournaments? So,
yeah.
But anyway, thank you. And I forgot, Your Honor, I needed to address that question.
It's okay. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Your Honor, I just want to clarify that again with the event center. The $1 million isn't a loss from the shows. It's also to do some general maintenance to the building, but just the routine maintenance to keep the building open for, plumbing repairs and painting and that kind of operation.
Yeah.
And the new seats are too small for big-butted guys like me. Anyway, thank you, Your Honor.
I agree. And I guess that means I'm a big-butted guy. Anyone else care to address council?
Name's Dennis Steensland, 533 South Washington, Casper. And my thing was the weed and litter control contract. There is an obligation to your neighbors in the neighborhood to keep your place up. I think that's primary one. Number two is you get along with your neighbors. You don't have anybody calling in on you to clean up your place. My only thing would be to cut down the 10 days they get to get a notice, and then you give them another 10 days before they do it. So as a neighbor, you're putting up with it for a month when it was bad when it started. So that would be my only thing, and I know it probably can't happen, but if they could shorten up that period or put more pressure on earlier, I think that would be the way to go.
I don't know, those seeds cure at just a certain rate.
I didn't hear any of that.
Yeah. Some of us would like it if it took longer, but that's, I don't want to sound like a scofflaw, all right?
Well, I want it to be shorter.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Because you're the neighbor.
Yeah. I'm probably the offender as well.
Okay. Duly noted. I don't know if we want to tweak that, but that's my biased opinion. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Welcome, sir. Could I get your name?
Cecil Harris, 1446 Kearney Avenue. And I'll talk to you about a successful one-cent project. Stucking off restrooms. It's been a city park. It's sort of out of sight and out of mind, tucked away behind the dump. But you might think this is the off-season, but there was 1,300 plus user days in December, January, and February each month.
Wow.
Pardon?
That's a lot. I'm surprised.
Yep. Many of the 4-Hers are mothers and youth, and the Porta-Johns are not very inviting this time of the year. This project's funds, the project funds were approved by the voters 5.5 years ago. Regarding the last two biddings, the first was defaulted with a forfeiture of $7,000. The last was scheduled to start construction the spring of 2016. Unfortunately, the owner died and unexpectedly and left no provision for the company to carry on. Apparently, the performance bondholder is paying a difference and the project can move forward with the next bidder. A shortfall has been projected and the Casper Shooters Club has paid the city $15,000. Lastly, the Casper Shooters Club has a 25-year history of being fiscally solvent. Some patrons are staying away due to the facilities, and the gun shows have been temporarily suspended. My request at this time is that the project be expedited wherever possible. While keeping in mind the range normally open 7 days a week in September and October.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Cecil Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Harris, your organization deserves an apology from the city for the length of time that you've waited for this, and we really appreciate your patience because those restrooms should have been built a long time ago.
Yep.
And hopefully we will do everything we can to get it done quickly.
Okay. Concerning the event center, since I'm up here, we may be catering to the wrong crowd. I'd probably dig down and go if it wasn't too outrageous for Baxter Black or Red Siegel or somebody like that. It probably wouldn't have to be $50 or $75 a hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Lamont.
Mr. Mayor, good to see you. You've been too light on my good friend over here, Les Becker. Through protocol, I'm sure her boss would allow you to put her on the spot once in a while. That was a good choice, too. I never got a chance to congratulate you, Elizabeth. Tom was busy interviewing you. I thought I'd best give you an update. Mayor, I didn't mean to blindside you with throwing you as a member of the Casper Mountain Landowners Association. I don't even know if you're aware of that yet, but on Facebook. And just out of show of hands, how many of you guys are on Facebook? I'd encourage you to join that site because of your investment.
I was going to suggest that Sweeney join.
Tom, you need to be on there too. I get stuck with being the facilitator, Tom Morton. And, I started it because there was no voice up there. And Casper Mountain's a community, and you guys are part of it, a big part of it. And I think you've picked up on the fact that I'm pretty supportive of Hogadon and the bicycle stuff and whatever else. Those are good opportunities. I know some of them are going to have to wait. But you guys have been an excellent neighbor up there, in my opinion. And that's why I've come to try to brief you. I forgot one thing. You've been awful quiet during the wrap-up session. I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm worried about you. And Steve has been too, and I've been over there helping him out across the street. But anyhow, I need to bring you up to speed on a couple of things. And I'll warn you on that landowner site, when you join that, turn the notifications off. And just drop in once in a while and see what's going on. And I do a good job of trying to run interference. And sometimes I have to be the devil's advocate. It may not be in my opinions. Our friend Bruce Lamerson gets mad at me once in a while. I flushed him out this weekend. He'd been hiding for a while. But it's positive feedback for the most part. And this last snowstorm really shook out a major weakness. And as time goes by and people, new faces roll into positions, things get forgotten about. And I learned a long time ago in my days of public service that agreements and memorandums of understanding are very important because of that reason. And you know that. You guys write them up all the time. Or you do, and they bless them. And they're always good. But there was a handshake agreement. Let me back up. My father and Paul Manley floated the bonds for the Casper Mountain Fire Department years ago. And all we had was a bunch of military trucks up there. Back in the early 70s, there was a big fire over Muddy Mountain. And out of the 5 military units we took over there, we pulled 4 of them home, but the only one was left running. So I'll go back even a little further. The Seventh-day Adventist Church got struck one time by lightning. There was no mutual aid agreement. The city pulled up to the last hydrant at Casper College. They waited for the mountain 6x6 to come down and the county fire department, needless to say, the church went to the ground. That changed things tremendously. You're looking at the guy that put the volunteer interface together for the strike team. I think I've shared that with you before, on a county-wide basis, so we could save our mountain, or try to. Bob knows my history in that. I spent more time taking care of that, not for my own personal gain. You know, it took a lot of time away from business, and I can respect you guys' time that you devote. That cuts into your livelihood as well. But anyhow, my dad and Paul, they wouldn't have got the new building built. There was a 6x6 that was always kept in a heated stall in the old log service building. And the county was kind enough, through the Parks Department, to pick up, the county Parks Department, to pick up the heat bill for that. And also keep the road plowed. Well, that took our insurance rating down. You guys don't all understand that from your point of view, because that's why you have the trucks that you've been kind enough to fund through the 1% monies and whatever else. That's been money well spent, downtown, wherever else. The Circle A Drive-In, I don't know if many of you remember that. It was right there where the sledding hill is, right down the street, back to the north from where the county service building is. Unfortunately, somebody that was living in there that was running that, the curtains got next to the electric heat, or they put new curtains in and they caught on fire, and they were lucky they got out of there. They had to jump out through the window. But the fire truck did get down. The volunteers got there and got it down, but the darn pump wouldn't start. It was pretty rough unit. So we've come a long ways with that up there, and you know, the outcome of that was we saw the needs to expand the fire department for wildland firefighting purposes. The county had a county fire department. In the early days, it was made up of road and bridge people. And those road and bridge guys, they did not like fighting fire. They wanted to go home when it was quitting time, and I don't blame them. Their heart wasn't in it. It wasn't their property. They didn't care. So we had to build some pride in that, and we got it done. They still have a pretty solid group up there. And I know they really appreciate the support you guys have given them through the council down through the years, as well as the commissioners. There was a handshake agreement with Jim Sullivan, Mike Hagler's former predecessor of the road and bridge superintendent. And there should have been a memorandum of understanding cut that the county would always do the plowing as a priority at the fire station. And it had always been done up until this last time. But in enters a mutual investment of the city and the county, and that's the biathlon range. I was here a year ago and spoke before you guys in favor of that. I'm still in favor of it. Matter of fact, I just posted a congratulatory posting for 2 kids that got medals at the Nationals. And one of them's our UPS man's son, Kelly Pearson. Good kid, has been dedicated. I posted another one at the start of the race, which was very colorful. But again, there was only 25 people here this weekend. And the news coverage that thing gets, wow. That's dominated, and it's still not growing. And you guys are throwing a lot of money at that. And I've already forewarned you of what's going on your property up there that you're not aware of. And I want to forewarn you, I'm going to be sending you some emails of pictures I took last spring, or last fall. And I have a major, major concern. It's going to come back to bite Susie McMurray right in the butt. And she's a friend of mine, excuse my French, okay? But all that fill that they pushed around up there, 300 to 400,000 cubic yards, was not compacted, other than with dozer cleats. Bob, you know what dozer cleats do in comparison to compaction standards and proxy standards, Proctor standards. So we got almost a record amount of moisture in that snowfall. We're 127% of normal. Oddly enough, the only commissioner we get to drive up there is Kanae's husband, take a look at. He's worried. He's really worried. And he tracks. He's a member. He's the only county commissioner that's a member of that site. And they're your partners in all of this, on the whole mountain. encouraging all that use, but us taxpayers up there, we're carrying the burden for almost 100% of fire protection other than what you guys bought for these trucks in the past. And we as landowners appreciate that. But the Bluegrass Festival, yeah, it's great for money making. But the exposure we have, there should be land, soft line, and portable water tanks all the way around there. The city should be involved with their wildland strike team as a training exercise to have a preventative safety measures when there's that many thousands of people up there. And then they're parking everybody up on top of the hill where the fire's going to run. So I know I'm taking quite a bit of time here, but you guys need to hear this. I've been quiet the last 2 or 3 minute meetings, so hopefully I got a little credit of time. So, and I'm making sense. I'm not rambling on, thank gosh. I'm focused. That's tough for me to do sometimes. Kanae knows that. So is Charlie. They've seen me in action, and you guys know my weaknesses. So anyhow, you know, I've heard rumblings that they're going to try to hold some pretty big events to justify the gun range in the summer months. Bad deal. Then they're talking about, and this doesn't include you guys, but they're talking about building an amphitheater at Bear Trap on the south end. And there's a squeeze because of some emphasis by the management out there that's into bicycling. You guys know what I'm talking about, and that's not all bad. But snowmobiling is, I think I quoted those figures to you, did I not, when I was in here? It's well in excess of a $1.4 million per year industry, and that was in 2014 to the state of Wyoming. And Natrona County's number 4 in that, tied with the other 3. And Jackson in that area is number 1, that's obvious. But anyhow, there's gas tax money in that, and I think you guys might be able to claim some of that. I don't know if you do or not, or how that's distributed. But I think there's some concerns there, and motorized continues getting squeezed off of there. And you guys enjoy a big part of the sales tax of a $13,000 to $15,000 snowmobile, a $20,000 to $30,000 enclosed trailer. Then a guy's got to have his fancy 3/4 1-ton diesel truck to pull it with. So there's some good revenue there. You compare that to a set of skis and a bicycle, there's a big difference. I'm not down on either one of them, but there's some money to be made in registrations by the county without the taxpayers funding that. And you're all looking for tough ways to tighten up money. And there's one way to do it, and working through the Wild City program of recreation. So where I'm leading to, can one of you guys share with me, or can I?
Yeah,
Can you share with me where the funding came, or did the city buy a truck recently?
We did. Woody Giles pointed out that when we bought for the Casper Mountain Fire Department, didn't we get him a truck?
I'm not so sure you haven't bought 2 in the last, 10 years or so.
I recall we bought at least 1 truck.
Yes, we bought a truck about 3 years
know,
ago.
Okay, that's
You can kick that out and we'll figure out next. But why I sent you that, Dan, was, you guys got one heck of an investment sitting over there. You just completed that service building, and you're going to build a lodge, a nice lodge, and you ask for donations in that. And what the excuse is not a manned department. Well, I'm sorry. There's a guy who lives right across the street from that, and many others in that neighborhood. And we have to have a heated stall with a truck that's full. We got two 15,000-gallon heated tanks. And that heated water goes through a pipe and provides the water service down to the lodge for the Nordic ski trails. And that's what's getting prioritized, that parking lot and the biathlon range. And you guys have been on your own over there taking care of things, but we were getting desperate on the mountain. Granted, they don't provide first aid, but they have acted as backup to Life Flight in the past. And, they have people that want to get to the firehouse to respond to calls. Otherwise, we've got to wait for them to come from town, or they strip the resource out of the city or the county. So, what I'm looking for is if we need aid in the future, we need help. And I was asked to do that down. I'm sorry I blindsided you with that, putting you on there, but I already had you on the Citizen League site, which is another good one. I pin you on occasion with that one, but that and the other, I know you guys try to get together and work together with your staffs. Everybody needs to get on the same page. And it's going to affect, I know you guys are self-insured. We've already been down that path over the Gold Creek thing and everything else, but it affects the residents. And it affects church camps, fire ratings. And those things have hundreds of people in them in the summertime. And they use them in the winter to a degree. Cap Sack is in there. We got a bed and breakfast up on the mountain that's busy all of the time. That's been an asset. I'd like to see a little more commercial property right down in the Hogadon area. We need a little general store up there. And I think you could work together with, I'm just flagging you that you might get a request for that. But anyhow, that kind of brings you up to the speed other than Elkhorn Creek, possibly with a heck of a bunch of siltation coming down. And I think I already dropped the bombshell on you. I do have an email back from the Corps of Engineers. There was not any permit issued for any disturbance in that drainage up there whatsoever. And they have dammed it up. It is a dry creek bed. And whatever the new regulation is for the 404 Clean Water Act, whatever it is, they're in violation big time. So out of professional courtesy, I wanted to come before you guys tonight and give you a heads up. And again, I'm not anti-biathlon range, but they got to play by the rules. And you know where they're going to be coming, because you just went through that downstream from Hogadon. And, I'm not a party to that, but we don't need another nightmare like that. And, if there's one person involved that went out and was marking trees and had the dozer coming behind him, and the parks manager claims he didn't know anything about that. And that's destruction of public property at its finest. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. You say there's huge slash piles up there?
There is a monster slash pile still left behind that the contractor is responsible for at the biathlon game venue. I would suggest, and it's a matter of public record, that you have your staff obtain the complete sets of plans from Ingrid Miller. They went in and massaged those. When I started crying foul, there's a major safety violation in that biathlon range, and they're in violation of the ADA Act, and they don't want to admit it. They're dancing around it. They don't like me very well. At least one of the commissioners over there doesn't. But, I'm not trying to raise heck with them, and I'm not running for office. I'm getting encouraged to do so, but I think I'm more effective like Pat Sweeney is on this side of the table. But, I'm an advocate of that. And then the gigantic slash pile. I mean, it is huge. And it's at a record size, is sitting there where the community slash pile was put together for no commercial dumping. And they allowed that. I've got video of that all summer long. I was a busy camper trying to build a building and take pictures and keep all this honest and what was going on. And they're one of your city staff. I don't want to check that out, but they were kind enough to share with me what was going on there. And that wood chip pile almost ended up on that mountain. And that's a good thing it didn't. We don't need to discuss that any further because we got litigation going on.
Well, we'll check into that.
So, but let me tell you this. What a good thought is to go in, because you're going to need more of that woody chip fund, because you lost a bunch of it in the fire for the river project. And that's a good deal. I support that.
Right.
And to go into that chip pile and take the chipper up there. I go into the slash pile, take the chipper up, start chipping and dumping it right into the 71 Construction's dump trucks that you already have a contract with, and they subcontract with another and start hauling off the mountain when it's safe. And then go out and strategically stack that stuff wherever it's necessary, but rather than burn it. I think that's a viable alternative. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Oh, I can't hear it. Somebody say thank you? Or
I just said thanks. Okay, anybody else want to address council? Welcome, Mr. Giles.
90 East Magnolia. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the R.C. Johnson equal pay thing. It's another thing near and dear to my heart. The problem is there's some natural laws in dealing with this, and an example of a natural law is gravity. It doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it, you got to deal with it. And the human natural law is that people seek to satisfy their desires with the least exertion and have unlimited desires, which means, to shorten this up, means an employer is not inclined to pay somebody $20 an hour if he can get them for 10. I mean, it's just kind of simple stuff. In 2007, 2008, nearly every business in town had a sign saying, "We are now accepting applications," and couldn't get anybody. And working at McDonald's with $12 an hour, which was unbelievable at the time. So, and we're all old enough to remember then when the power company in the paper said, we're gonna put out applications. We want to hire 20 people to do linewomen's work. We're in a training program on one thing or another. And the picture in the paper always had this crowd of people down the street and around the block and back. So they had 150 people applying for 20 positions. We've all seen that picture. But what happens is the person who's now going to hire somebody gets to play God. You're too old, you're female, we want somebody with 10 years experience, 22 years old, and has a master's degree. And they might find one person that meets that criteria. But anyway, if you want to raise wages, and not just for women, but for everybody, and people of color, and one thing, or people have a different, that like going barefoot, that's their lifestyle, and is what you do is try to create a situation where you have, say, 20 positions and only one applicant. Now the ball's in the court of the applicant. And if your business is good and booming and you need somebody, you're not going to be so picky. So I've been here before, and I mentioned the way to diversify economies, and I guess you're still being vetted, but if you want to do something for women's wages and wages of color and business costs, you might vet just a little bit faster. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Giles? Thank you.
One more thing. The event center, in my opinion, did not operate at $1 million loss. Because if it did, that's the same thing as saying that our police department operated at a loss, and our fire department, and our schools, and our roads. And my house is worth more. I don't know how much, 100, 200, because of the event center. And I only go there once a year or two for the home show, and I went to the Blue Man Group. But it enhances the value. And if you get rid of the event center, just hypothetically, and Hogadon and a skating rink and this and that, and one thing and another, and close up a lot of schools, then we'd all be living in Bill. So we're not operating at a loss.
Thank you.
Well said.
Anyone else care to address council? At this time, we ask council members to bring forth relevant concerns or issues. This time, we're going to start with Ray.
Actually, don't have anything at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. How about Kneed?
I think I'm good, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Scott?
I actually don't have too much. You know, I've realized at this point in my tenure on sitting on council that these fifth Tuesdays are really nice.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be back in the hear everyone talk. Just a few things right now. I have gotten a few contacts about what we're doing with the event center, and I think a number of us got an email from a particular citizen. And I actually did contact them, and my plan is to give them a call back tomorrow to help explain some of the things that we're doing with this management group and some of the positive things that can come out of it. And I know a lot of people are concerned about what will happen with it. And I think this is a great thing. From what I can see, the event center has been managed really well up until all but this is just another tool for us to use to maybe get some more out of it. And some of the concerns being posed out there is, well, are we going to have the local events? And, you know, these are the concerns that were brought up when we had these guys at our work session, is that that's still our focus. And we understand the economic impacts that we have with these groups coming into town. So I don't think we have any intention of not letting that go. And honestly, I think we're gonna see a lot more decent shows coming through, because what this management group promises is that they have kind of a network that they're going to be able to link people coming in with us. So I think it's going to be a pretty good deal. I think we're still waiting to see what that agreement is going to look like, but I think we're going to be moving forward with that. And contact me if you have any questions about that. I would think any of us sitting on this council would be happy to answer any questions about that. And that's really all I have to see. There's I got an email about the airport viewing on Monday, which I will be attending, so we'll check out some things at the airport. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Hiley.
Just wanted to comment that one of my favorite things last summer was the advent of the first Thursday art walks, and this coming Thursday is the first art walk of the season. I think the weather is going to smile upon us as compared to, say, last week for that event, and I'd encourage people to get out and get to know their neighbors and enjoy the art walk.
We're on that art walk.
Yeah.
Jude and I are on that art walk.
So it's a great event, and you know, just once a month you can go downtown and enjoy the city's downtown and the local galleries and businesses that participate. It's a worthwhile event. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Hopkins.
No meetings last week. I wanted to commend staff tonight because I noticed we purchased 3 pieces of used equipment that look like really good values. When you buy equipment, value is what you're looking for, and it doesn't always have to be new. But thank you for doing that with an eye on our budget.
Councilman Johnson.
I had a CACVB meeting today. It was fairly long, and we went over mostly grant requests and yay or nay those. We were told that so far they've gotten, as of yesterday, 3,441 visitor guide requests, when last year the total for all of 2015 was 1,093. So we are on our way. They tabled the issue regarding the visitor center because I think the chamber and the CACVB want to meet with the city manager first before we make any decisions, so I think they'll be contacting you here soon. I'm going to try and go to that Climb Wyoming open house on Thursday. And then I wanted to bring in our biathletes that have been doing such a good job and recognize them. We had 2 from Casper that won a silver and bronze medal in the Nationals. And so I think we're going to do that on the meeting on the 19th. I think that's a really good asset up there, and it's helping the youth of our own community, and it's gaining national and world recognition. So I do think it's growing, and it'll continue.
Councilman Powell.
You know, it's said that one of the best ways to learn about the country that you live in is to spend some time in another country. And I just spent a week in China. And since we spent a little time talking about public safety issues tonight, it's nice to come back to the United States where you don't have to be certain that you have a highly functioning immune system every time you go out to eat, because there are no food handling regulations in China that I can see. It's nice to be able to drive in streets where the lane markers aren't just vague suggestions, and that if you break the law in your driving habits, you're probably going to get pulled over and fined eventually. In China, that doesn't happen. And many of the things that people sometimes grouse about as far as why does the government have to regulate our behavior this way or that way, you really come to appreciate those things when you're in a place where none of that really happens. So, I like living in the United States. And appreciate some of these things much more than I did. The other thing I want to mention is sometimes embedded in our consent resolutions are items of great importance that people don't really notice or understand the implications. The city is once again going to be making a significant contribution to the Conservation District, and that money is being spent to line ditches and to help landowners move from flood irrigation to pivot irrigation, both of which have a significant impact on the selenium discharge into our river. And that money is a very wise investment, because if we can continue to make headway on these selenium levels, we can hopefully prevent, again, a very major expenditure in the selenium removal process at the wastewater treatment plant. So this is a kind of a prevention method that we partake in, and we are actually increasing our contribution at a time when it's difficult to do so, but it's hard to see where we could spend that money more effectively than on dealing with this problem and avoiding a major big-ticket item down the road. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Kathy.
Excuse me. I noticed Mr. Sweeney has left. Mr. Lamont is still here. I would like to thank both of those individuals for recognizing the value of the amenities that are here in Casper, both on the mountain and in town, i.e. the event center, Hogadon, the golf courses, the ice arenas. Those are the things that make Casper what Casper is. As far as the disparaging remarks about Bill, please remember that that was Mr. Giles that made those. So we do thank you for that. But that is something that I do appreciate, that the citizens do recognize the value of our amenities. And speaking of the value of amenities, we are 10 weeks away from the College National Finals Rodeo. So that is one of our big events that will be coming here. We look forward to the contestants coming, and please get out and help support that event. That is a big event for our city and for our community nationally and internationally. Those kids come from all over the country to come here, and they don't call it the CNFR. They talk about they're going to Casper. Just like the guys on the PRCA talk about going to Vegas, the kids talk about coming to Casper. And that is a brand that we have that is a good thing for this community and puts Casper on the map throughout the country. So let's keep that going, and we do appreciate your support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I attended that selenium meeting at the Conservation District. It was the 28th Monday, and a lot of people there, very full room. Two of the commissioners sat next to Senator Landon. The essential thing to get out of that meeting was, in the bureaucratic process, the federal DEQ kind of pushes and leans on the state DEQ to set limits for the parts per billion, 5 parts per billion, as the North Platte flows through Casper in that 36-mile measuring area. Anyway, the process is state has to set limits because of pressure, and then the federal DEQ can come along and say, well, you're in violation of the limits that you set. And then they could get squiggly with the regulation. It's not happening yet, but there are rumblings. And the pressure to have the Wyoming DEQ set the limit at 5 parts per billion or whatever it is, that's the first step. So that's essentially what I got out of it. That the bureaucratic behemoth stirs. Anyway, The next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, April 12th, 2016, in the council's meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 19th, 2016, in the council chambers. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Johnson, seconded by Miller. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passes.
This meeting is adjourned.
Adjourn.